Arlington's town manager, Adam Chapdelaine, makes it official. He will be stepping down from his post in mid-June. He made that announcement publicly before the select board this week. We will have the very latest. Arlington's Dallin Museum is putting a pair of grants to work as this town treasure slowly ventures into the post-pandemic world. ACMi News talks to the Dallin Museum curator. For weeks now, we've been telling you an arrest has been made in a string of arsons, 2 of which targeted the Chabad Center for Jewish Life right here in Arlington nearly 3 years ago. We get an update on this case now from Arlington's police chief. And ACMi News talks to an area pastor of a Ukrainian church and how it's affected his congregation as the horror of war continues to unfold a half a world away. ACMi News starts right now.
From McLennan Park to Spy Pond, from Poets Corner to the Mystic River, we have Arlington covered. We're your neighbors, a friend you can turn to, giving you stories that count from people who care. Dedicated, determined, dependable. This is ACMi News.
Town manager Adam Chapdelaine tells Arlington's Select Board he plans to step down from his position this summer. Hello, I'm Drew Weisberg.
And I'm Ashley Chung. Mr. Chapdelaine made that announcement at the board's March 7th meeting. He plans to make his last day as town manager Friday, June 17th.
Chapdelaine, who has served Arlington as town manager for nearly 10 years, says he's forever grateful for the opportunity he's had in Arlington, and that he'll be forever proud of what he's accomplished, working as a team with other town leaders.
After a great deal of consideration, I've decided that I need an opportunity to reflect, recharge, and refocus as I consider what to do next in my career. As we all know, the past few years have been very challenging, but they have also provided perspective. Perspective that has shown me that nothing is promised and that the time we have here is to be cherished. Perspective that has shown me that my children will only be young once. And perspective that has shown me that while the work we do is vitally important, it doesn't need to be our identity. I'll always appreciate and cherish the support that I've been granted by town residents and volunteers. Arlington is a tremendous community. It has been a wonderful place to work, and I will be forever grateful for the opportunity that it has given me to build my professional skills while working on an array of important issues. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone for making Arlington such a wonderful town. It will always hold a special place in my heart.
Chapdelaine tells ACMi News that he hopes to take some time off in the summer and that ideally he plans to pursue other interests in the fall.
Beginning Monday, March the 7th, masks are now optional in Arlington's K-12 schools. This month, the school committee voted unanimously to accept Superintendent Elizabeth Homan's recommendation to make wearing masks optional. The recommendation comes in wake of high vaccination rates among students and staff and a drop in positive tests. Masks will still be required on school buses and vans through at least the end of this month. That goes for all school health offices and medical waiting rooms as well. Ms. Homan says the school district will revisit these requirements on a month-to-month basis.
You may recall, the U.S. Justice Department announced recently an indictment was unsealed, charging a Massachusetts man of tampering with an investigation into 4 arsons in this area nearly 3 years ago. Those arsons targeted Jewish-related institutions, including the Chabad Center for Jewish Life in Arlington. That center was the target of 2 of the 4 fires just days apart in May of 2019. ACMi News recently spoke to the rabbi of the center, Avi Bucket, after the charges were filed 2 weeks ago. Rabbi Bucket told us this was an extremely traumatic and anti-Semitic event. It was a domestic terrorist attack, and police said they're going to the ends of the earth to make sure that justice is served, and they truly did that. The man charged is the older brother of the suspected arsonist, and he is currently in custody in Sweden. His younger brother is believed to have died not long after the arsons in an attempted suicide. The older brother is charged with obstruction of justice, among other things. This week, ACMi spoke to Arlington Police Chief Julie Flaherty to get her take on where this case now stands.
Back in 2019, The Center for Jewish Life on Lake Street had two arsons. The first one being on May 11th in 2019, and then just a few days later on May 16th, both very frightening events for the rabbi and his family. Our officers worked tirelessly. We partnered with the FBI, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the state police. We investigated every lead in the case. We investigated every tip. And then we heard just last week that the U.S. Attorney's Office announced that a Massachusetts man had been indicted in this crime, in this hate crime in Arson, and that an arrest was made actually in Sweden. So it is believed that the person who was responsible for the actual arsons and hate crime has died. And his brother was the person who was indicted on several charges, including lying in matters involving domestic terrorism and concealing evidence in a federal investigation, among many other crimes. I was able to meet with Rabbi Avi last week, and I know that him and his family are very grateful that an arrest has been made. And we are really hoping that this is providing some this development provides some peace and some closure for them. I will be following the case closely going forward, and we'll be hoping for a successful and speedy extradition.
U.S. authorities are working with Swedish law enforcement officials on getting the older brother back to the States. No word on when that may take place.
An effort designed to form a civilian panel aimed at improving trust between town police and the residents police are paid to protect is seemingly on its way to town meeting. But apparently there needs to be more clarity. Namely, how to define law enforcement, and once it's defined, should law enforcement officials be part of the panel?
I want this to go to town meeting. I think it's going to go to town meeting. I'll do whatever it takes to get it to town meeting with as little stress on the board as possible. I certainly support the recommendation of the study committee as it is, without any law enforcement or police on the committee. The committee has done a lot of work, and they've come to, I think, a solid conclusion, and I'm very much inclined to go with their recommendation. That said, I am willing to predict two things. One is that if we send it to town meeting with an amendment for having the ability to put police officers on it, town meeting is going to take it out. And two is if it should survive, we're still not going to end up with police officers on the committee. Just the nature of the entities that are going to choose the members aren't going to do it. So we can argue it, but I think in the end we're going to end up with what the committee has recommended. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Law enforcement is very broad. I've learned this recently at my job, that includes people who are working in the criminal justice system, who might be advocates even for some of the folks we're trying to help build trust. Especially, or formally so. So I think that would be worth, I wonder if just being explicit about police officers might be one solution to that aspect of it. And I think in terms of what I'd be prepared to vote for tonight, and I agree with Mr. Diggins. I think that this needs to go to town meeting, and I think we need to have a strong show of support for it. Select board in the end has an opinion, and there's 5 of us that town meeting makes the decision. And I think Mr. Diggins is right, that whatever we say about eligibility, it's gonna ultimately get decided there, and that's how it should be.
An amendment passed 4-1 at the select board meeting earlier this month, with board member Len Diggins voting no, addressing the issue of whether law enforcement personnel should be on the panel at all.
The Arlington Police Force is looking to add a new member to a unique position within the department. The APD is looking to hire what's known as a recovery coach. Chief Julie Flaherty told ACMi what a recovery coach is and why the department is so eager to add this new hire to the police roster.
What is a recovery coach, and why is the department choosing to create the position, and how does it fit in with the general mission of the APD?
Sure, right. So we've seen this program in other departments, in other area departments, and it's been very successful. We are in the process of hiring a recovery coach, and we're still working through some minor details, but we do hope that person will be on board within the next couple of weeks. And what a recovery coach really does is kind of act as a shepherd or a mentor to someone, or a personal guide really to somebody who is looking to enter recovery or is already in recovery. The recovery coach will work very closely with our jail diversion clinician who's been with us for some time now. And we're hoping that this will be a successful program in Arlington because there is a need for it. The recovery coach will be a liaison between the Arlington Police Department, because we're very close to recovery, to people in recovery, and they'll kind of shepherd that person through processes. So we're excited to have that new role, and like I said, we're hoping to have that person on board within the next 2 weeks.
Chief Flaherty says this new position only enhances the APD's progressive approach to serving the Arlington community.
Arlington's Dallin Museum was recently awarded $55,000 in grants, and curator Heather Lavelle is wasting no time putting that money to good use. The bulk of the money will go towards redesigning the museum's entryway and Indigenous Peoples Gallery. ACMi News recently spoke to Heather Lavelle, who told us it's great to be open once again as we hopefully emerge from this pandemic.
The $50,000 is a grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism. And that was facilitated by Representative Sean Garbely, who is a very strong supporter for many years of the museum. And he worked with a team from the museum to make that happen. So these funds are going to be split between two major projects. One would be the redesign of the museum's entryway and the Indigenous Peoples Gallery. And the other will allow us to digitize our archives and catalog them and make them available via an online database on our website so that the community will have access to these images.
That's great. Now, how long have you been closed because of what's been going on with this pandemic?
We had reopened so we just pay attention to the numbers. We've opened and closed a couple of times.
Yeah.
We were closed throughout January and the first part of February, but had been open prior to that. Mm-hmm. Prior to that second reopening, though, we had been closed for over a year.
Wow.
Yeah, during our museum spaces are just so small.
Yeah.
We were allowing, when it was safe, small guided tours. We have a wonderful docent named Peter Middleton who was offering guided tours over last winter for no more than 3 people in a group, because that's really how many we could fit safely in the gallery with the docent included.
Yeah, checkerboarding the schedule has got to be very aggravating, but especially during the pandemic. Did you find yourself as curator having the time maybe to apply for these grants and maybe cleaning up the house, so to speak, at least doing other things that could be beneficial post-pandemic?
Oh, yes. I mean, we were quite busy while we were closed. We were busier than ever, both with applying for grants and planning for these projects, and also pivoting to more online programming. And we had unveiled at the beginning of the pandemic, we unveiled a virtual tour of the galleries, and we have had thousands of people tour the galleries via that virtual tour. And like I said, offering a lot more online programming. And so now knowing how to utilize a lot of these technologies that we didn't have before, that will serve us well moving forward as we continue to both be open and have face-to-face contact with our visitors, which is what we always want and have missed so much. But we'll also be able to continue with the online programming and the virtual tour and reach so many more people. And we did a lot too. We did a lot of social media engagement, and that has helped get the word out about the museum. So when we do have to close, more people hear about it.
The Dallin Museum is open for tours on Saturdays and Sundays from 12 to 4 p.m. No appointments necessary. The suggested donation is $5 per person. If you have any questions, call the museum at 781-641-0747. ACMi has been lucky enough to rely on the valuable help of interns, so this station can continue airing the programming you see here every day.
And this spring semester is no different. So who are ACMi's interns for these months going into the late spring and early summer semester? Well, you're looking at two of them right now.
Here is a segment we at ACMi call Meet the Interns.
Right. Well, tell us about yourself, Ashley.
We made a video of the segment ourselves, remember?
That's right. Here, take a look.
Hi, I'm Ashley Chung and I'm an intern at ACMi. I'm from the Bay Area, California, and I'm a sophomore at Tufts University, majoring in International Literary and Visual Studies on the film track and biopsychology. I'm also an intern at ACMi because I'm very interested in film production and possibly pursuing it as a career path. My favorite TV show is Pen 15, and some of my favorite movies are Frances Ha and The Florida Project. My truth and a lie is that I have a cat named Molly, I'm a dancer, and I'm an older sister. The parts of filmmaking I'm most interested in are editing, directing, and screenwriting because I love the storytelling and artistic parts of filmmaking.
It's beautiful. Oh, hello. My name is Drew Weisberg, and you've just caught me. I'm one of the interns here at ACMi this semester, and I decided to work here because previously I was an intern during the summer of COVID, and I didn't get a chance to actually be in person with all the fine equipment here at ACMi, so I wanted to give it another try. I've got a couple things for you. My first thing is my favorite movie, which is 12 Monkeys, directed by Terry Gilliam. It's a neo-noir sci-fi film starring Bruce Willis with an Academy Award-winning supporting performance by Brad Pitt. It's really great, and yeah, one other thing for you is I have two truths and a lie. My first truth is that I've traveled to 4 continents. The next is that I have survived blood poisoning and recovered from a concussion in 3 days, proving that I am quite durable. And my third is that I have seen over 100 different films in my life. That's all from me, so thanks so much. If you or someone you know wish to become an ACMi intern, all you have to do is give us a call at 781-777-1115. Again, that's 781-777-1115. There's a church just to the north of us watching the horrific events unfold in Ukraine as Russian troops continue their brutal and unwarranted invasion of that nation.
St. John the Baptist Ukrainian Catholic Church in Salem has a few parishioners with direct ties to that embattled country. ACMi News spoke to Father John Morris, who gives us an update on one parishioner in particular who is just trying to survive this massive attack outside of Kyiv.
Although we were a very small community, a number of our parishioners have family and friends in Ukraine. In particular, we have a couple who have a grown son. He was born here, grew up and went to school here, and he has established a livelihood in Kyiv, the capital. And he's married and they have a little toddler. So for this couple, and they're a very faithful members of our community, we see them every week. So for them, it has been very unsettling. This one young man who has made his way with his wife and child out of the capital to someplace in the South, we don't know where, and where his wife has a sibling. I don't know whether the lack of communication is because they don't want to worry their parents, but we haven't heard many more details than that yet. There are others. Most of our people are from the western areas of the country, along the Polish border. That's where really most of our Ukrainian Catholics are from. And we have other parishioners with grown children and siblings and others there. We just haven't been able to hear much from them.
Everyone has close ties to their heritage, and this is such an ancient and beautiful culture. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking worldwide.
Well, that's the thing. We know that right before the attack, Vladimir Putin gave a speech that all the world heard when he basically, in 3 sentences, rewrote the history of Ukraine by saying it never was really a country and it was always considered part of Russia. I'm paraphrasing, but none of that is true. It's been a nation. It's for centuries. It has a very beautiful culture, its own language, its own poetry, literature, music. It's as you said, Jeff, so well. It's a very rich culture. And it has a rich history. It's also a very religious country. Christianity is deeply, deeply rooted in the Ukrainian people. This is a tenacious people who have been under attack by many enemies for many years, and they have always risen to the occasion to fight for their own land. And when I say land, I mean land is a very important part of this country, as you know. It's considered the breadbasket of Europe. Their land is everything to them. And so they have always been willing to fight for it.
These are dark times really for everybody, whether you're Ukrainian or not. Watching the horror unfolding on television every single night after night after night in the internet. What do you say to these people? How do you give them comfort?
Well, I think we're called to be the hands and the heart of God for people, you know, and just, I think I've always approached it just by being present to people and listening to them and letting them know that I'm listening with my whole heart, and that, you know, prayer is a very human, it's in some ways, prayer is the most human thing we can do, to acknowledge our Creator, who loves us and looks over us. And so we just try to go on giving that example that God is there for us, and we try to model that for people as best we can.
How testing is that for you personally?
Well, I guess it's what we do. It's what we've been called to do, and it's what we've tried to do for most of our adult life. And we're not in it alone. To be sure, at this time, other communities have come forward to let us know that we've all been under attack. And so we are all with the Ukrainians. It's been heartwarming. People of all faiths and all backgrounds have come forward to offer support and to be that presence of God for our people.
Father Morris invites Arlingtonians of any faith to attend his services, as all of us pray for that nation currently under siege. If you wish to learn more about the church and upcoming events scheduled during the Ukrainian crisis, just go to the church website, stjohnsukr.com. That's stjohnsukr.com. Also, if there's anyone in the Arlington area with ties to Ukraine or who knows someone with ties to that nation, we'd like to hear from you. Email us at jeff.barnd@acmi.tv. That's jeff.barnd@acmi.tv.
That'll do it for this week's edition of ACMi News. Thanks for joining us. I'm Drew Weisberg.
And I'm Ashley Chung. Have a great day, everyone. See you next week.
You can always check out our latest segments and newscasts on the web at acmi.tv/news. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ACMi News. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You'll find us at youtube.com/ACMi News. If you have any news tips for us or wish to become a citizen journalist, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at news@acmi.tv or stop by ACMI Studio A at 85 Park Avenue.